Look at that sky pop.
Praise the name of Jesus. Oh, praise the name of Jesus.
Welcome back to that God Power channel. This is a channel where we're going to unlock the God Power land dormant on the inside of you. But first today, what we're going to do is finish breaking down the book of Mark from the Bible. And I think we're on chapter 15. If I can remember correctly, we are on chapter 15. The last one is chapter 14. Go check it out. It's dope. This chapter makes me very emotional. But let's go ahead and jump into it and see what happens. So if you don't remember at the end of the last chapter, Jesus got betrayed and handed over, and they started abusing him. So very early in the morning, the leading priests, elders, and the teachers of religious law, basically the entire high council, met to discuss their next steps. They brought Jesus, they led him away, and they took him to Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus replied, "You have said it." The leading priests accused him of many crimes, and Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer them? What about all those charges they're bringing against you?" But Jesus said nothing, much to Pilate's surprise. Now, it was the governor's custom that each year during Passover, that he release one prisoner, and it would be any prisoner that the people requested. So one of the prisoners at the time was Barabbas, and he was a revolutionary who had committed murder in an uprising. So the crowd went to Pilate and asked him to release a prisoner as usual. And he was like, "Would you like for me to release to you this king of the Jews?" And then he realized by now that the people were stirred up in the crowd. It was the religious teachers stirred up the people in the crowd to demand to release Barabbas instead of Jesus. So Pilate asked them, "Then what should I do with this man you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him!" And Pilate was like, "Why? What crime has he committed?" But the mob just screamed even louder, "Crucify him!" So to pacify the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them, and then he had Jesus flogged and whipped with a lead-tipped whip, and then turned over to the Roman soldiers to be crucified. The soldiers took Jesus into the courtyard of the governor's headquarters, and then they called out the entire regiment. They dressed him in a purple robe, and they weaved thorn branches into a crown and put it onto his head. Then they saluted him and taunted him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And then they struck him on the head with a reed stick, spit on him, and dropped down to the knees in mock worship. And when they were finally tired of mocking him, they took off the purple robe and put back on his clothes, and then they led him away to be crucified. Now, when they were doing this, a passerby named Simon, who was from Cyrene, was he was just coming in from the countryside, and the soldiers saw him, and they forced him to carry Jesus' cross. And they brought Jesus to a place called Golgotha. It means place of the skull. Then they offered him wine drugged with myrrh, but he refused it. Then the soldiers nailed him to the cross. They divided his clothes and then threw dice to decide who would get each piece. It was 9 a.m. when they crucified him, so 9 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And a sign announced the charges against him. It read, "The King of the Jews." 2 revolutionaries were crucified along with him. One was on his right and one was on his left. The people passing by shouted abuses, basically shaking their head in mockery like, "Ha! Look at you now. You said you were going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Well, save yourself and come down off that cross." The leading priests and the religious leaders also mocked Jesus. "He saved others but can't save himself. Let this Messiah, this King of Israel, come down from the cross so we can see it and believe him." Even the men crucified with Jesus ridiculed him. And at noon, darkness fell across the whole land, all the way until 3 p.m. And then at 3 p.m., Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you abandoned me? And then some of the bystanders misunderstood and they thought that he was screaming out for like Elijah, the prophet. So one of them ran and they filled a sponge with sour wine, holding it up to him. And they were using like a reed stick to do this so that he could drink. And then they're like, wait, let's see if Elijah comes and takes him down. And then Jesus uttered another loud cry and breathed his last breath. And at that time, the curtain in the temple was torn in two from the top to the bottom. And when the Roman officer who stood facing him saw how he died, he exclaimed, "This man truly was the Son of God." Some who were watching, or who were there watching from a distance, including Mary Magdalene and Mary, Jesus' mom, and this lady named Salome, they were followers of Jesus, and they cared for him when he was in Galilee. Many other women who had come with him to Jerusalem were also there watching this. This all happened on Friday, the day of preparation, the day before the Sabbath. And pause, Friday, the day before the Sabbath. That means Saturday is the Sabbath day for all those people debating that, like it says it right here. Like, right here. The day before the Sabbath. Friday, the day before the Sabbath. Saturday is the Sabbath. Okay. But this all happened on Friday, and as evening approached, Joseph of Arimathea took a risk and went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Now Joseph was a member of the high council, and he was actually waiting for the kingdom of God to come. Basically, he was a believer. Pilate couldn't believe that Jesus was already dead, so he called for the Roman officer and asked if he died already. And the officer confirmed that Jesus was dead. So Pilate told Joseph, yeah, you can have the body. Joseph brought a large sheet of linen cloth, and he took Jesus' body down from the cross, wrapped it in the cloth, and laid it in a tomb that had been carved out from the rock. Then he rolled a stone in front of it, and Mary Magdalene and Mary, Jesus' mom, saw where Jesus' body was. And that's the end of chapter 15. Short chapter, but like I said, very emotional. Like, they did some things to Jesus which was messed up and they killed him, which, in the other gospels they go into detail a little bit further. This more is like a bullet point type deal, but it's just horrible, horrible. And man. Luckily there's one more chapter after this. So let's see what happens in the 16th chapter. I'm sure that you guys will love to see what happens. I've already read it. It's amazing. If you don't even know this story and this is your first time hearing it, trust me, this is a dope ending. So join me in the last breakdown of the book of Mark of the new year in Mark chapter 16 next time. And also remember that you got that God. I got that God power.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.